There is something magnetic about the person who stands at the edge of the conversation rather than at the center of it. You have felt it before. You walk into a room and there are people talking loudly, laughing with abandon, performing their personalities like a practiced routine. And then there is someone else, someone quieter, someone who speaks less. But when they do, everyone leans in. Someone whose presence creates a gravitational pull that you cannot quite explain. You find yourself wondering what they are thinking. You find yourself wanting to impress them, to earn their attention, to be the one they choose to reveal themselves to. This is not about beauty, though beauty can be part of it. This is not about status, though status can amplify it. This is not about charisma in the traditional sense, the kind that fills a room with noise and energy. This is something deeper, something quieter, something infinitely more powerful. It is the magnetism of the unknowable, the fascination that comes from depth that does not announce itself, the pull toward someone who makes you work to understand them. You have been taught the opposite your entire life. You have been taught that good people are open books, that honesty means sharing everything, that if you want people to like you, you must make yourself available, accessible, completely transparent. You have been taught that mystery is the same as deception, that withholding any part of yourself is dishonest, that if you truly trust someone, you should tell them everything without hesitation or filter. So you have spent years doing exactly that. You have overshared in first conversations, hoping that if people knew your full story, they would finally see your value. You have explained your decisions before anyone asked for an explanation, terrified that silence would be interpreted as guilt or weakness. You have filled every pause with more words, more information, more of yourself poured out like water, from a pitcher that never empties, but also never quenches anyone's thirst. And what has it gotten you? Relationships that feel one-sided, where you give and receive almost nothing in return. Professional interactions, where you are taken for granted, because you have made yourself so available that people assume you always will be. Friendships where you are the person everyone vents to, but no one truly respects. The therapist who is never offered therapy in return, the one who knows everyone's secrets, while your own depth goes unexplored because you have already revealed everything there is to know. You have become invisible through overexposure. This is the painful paradox you are living. You thought that being completely known would make you loved. Instead, it has made you forgettable. You thought that constant availability would make you valued. Instead, it has made you taken for granted. You thought that explaining yourself thoroughly would make you understood. Instead, it has made you boring. People scroll past you now, both literally and metaphorically. They know your patterns, they have heard your stories, they have consumed the content of your personality and moved on to someone more intriguing, someone who has not given everything away in the first conversation. You have diluted your value by distributing it too freely, and you are exhausted from the performance of constant revelation that never seems to bring the connection you are desperately seeking. Here is what they do not teach you. Here is the truth that changes everything once you understand it. Mystery is not about hiding who you are. Mystery is about revealing yourself with such intentionality that every glimpse feels like a privilege. It is not deception. It is honoring the sacredness of your own depth by choosing carefully who gets access to it and when. The most captivating people are not withholding their authentic selves. They are protecting their authentic selves from casual consumption by people who have not earned the right to know them. They understand something fundamental about human psychology that you are about to learn. Human beings only value what costs them something. When you hand someone your entire inner world without making them work for it, they do not treasure it. They cannot, because the human brain is wired to pursue, to wonder, to solve puzzles. When there is no puzzle left to solve, interest disappears. This is not manipulation. This is respect. Respect for yourself and respect for the reality of how human connection actually works. Real intimacy is not created through immediate total disclosure. Real intimacy is built gradually, layer by layer, as trust is demonstrated and reciprocity is established. When you give everything away at once, you are not creating intimacy. You are creating the illusion of intimacy, a false closeness that feels significant in the moment, but evaporates quickly because it was not built on a foundation of earned trust. You are about to embark on a transformation that will change how people see you, how they treat you, and how they value their access to you. But more importantly, it will change how you see yourself. You will learn to stop apologizing for taking up space. You will learn to stop explaining yourself to people who have not earned an explanation. You will learn to become comfortable with being misunderstood by people who do not matter, while being deeply understood by people who do. By the end of this journey, you will cultivate depth that cannot be scrolled past, not because you are performing mystery like a tactic, but because you have genuinely developed an inner world so rich that sharing all of it with everyone would be impossible even if you wanted to. You will develop presence that cannot be ignored. Not the loud, demanding presence of someone who needs attention, but the quiet, grounded presence of someone who is completely at home in themselves and does not need external validation to know their worth. You will learn the art of selective revelation. You will understand when to speak and when silence communicates more than words ever could. You will discover the power of strategic unavailability, not as punishment or game playing, but as preservation of your energy and maintenance of your value in a world that will consume everything you offer if you let it. You will master the gravitational force of genuine self-possession. This is the quality that makes people lean toward you, even when you are saying nothing. The quality that makes your words carry weight because you do not speak carelessly. The quality that makes people work to earn your time, your attention, your trust, because you have demonstrated through your boundaries that these things are valuable and not freely distributed to anyone who asks. This transformation will not happen overnight. It will not happen through memorizing techniques or following scripts. It will happen through understanding the psychology beneath the magnetism, the neuroscience beneath the fascination, and most importantly, through rebuilding your relationship with yourself so that you no longer need other people's understanding to feel whole. You will learn to become the person everyone wants to understand, not because you are playing hard to get, but because you have become genuinely hard to fully know. Not because you are withholding your authentic self, but because your authentic self is so deep, so multifaceted, so continually evolving that it cannot be captured in a single conversation or summarized in a social media profile. The people who currently take you for granted will notice the change. Some will not like it. They will try to pull you back into the role you used to play, the one where you were always available, always explaining, always giving without requiring anything in return. Let them fall away. They were never serving you. They were consuming you. The right people, the people worthy of knowing you, will respect the boundaries you set. They will appreciate that access to you is no longer guaranteed, but earned. They will treasure what you share because they understand it is a gift, not an obligation. You will stop performing for an audience that does not deserve a performance. You will stop explaining yourself into invisibility. You will stop seeking to be understood by everyone and start allowing the right people to understand you gradually, which is how real connection happens. You will become the person who makes others lean in, the person whose silence is as compelling as their speech, the person who is remembered long after the conversation ends because they left something unfinished, something to wonder about, something that keeps working in the other person's mind, even when you are no longer present. This is not about becoming cold or distant or withholding love from the people who deserve it. This is about recognizing that your depth, your story, your inner world is valuable. Too valuable to be given away carelessly to people who haven't demonstrated that they will honor it, protect it, reciprocate it. This is about learning to move through the world with the quiet confidence of someone who knows their worth and does not need constant external confirmation of it. Welcome to the beginning of your transformation. Welcome to the journey from invisible through overexposure to magnetic through intentional depth. Welcome to becoming the person everyone wants to understand, not because you have made yourself mysterious through games, but because you have finally learned to value yourself enough to share yourself selectively, thoughtfully, and only with those who have proven they deserve the privilege of knowing you. The world is about to lean toward you, not because you have changed who you are, but because you have stopped apologizing for who you are. Not because you have hidden your light, but because you have learned that light shines brightest when it is focused rather than scattered. Your transformation begins now. You wake up exhausted before the day has even begun. Not physically exhausted, though that might be true as well. Emotionally exhausted. Depleted before you have even interacted with another human being, because you know what is coming. You know you will walk into conversations already performing, already explaining, already pouring yourself out, in the hope that this time, finally, someone will see the value in what you are offering so freely. You have trained yourself to be an open book, the kind of book that anyone can pick up without paying for it, read without concentration, and put down without remembering a single page. You answer questions before they are asked, because you are terrified of being misunderstood. Someone mentions they are thinking about traveling, and before they can even finish their thought, you have already launched into your entire travel history, your philosophy on vacations, your anxieties about flying, your budget concerns, your dreams of places you want to visit someday. They did not ask for any of this, but you gave it anyway because silence feels dangerous to you. Pauses in conversation feel like judgment. The moment someone stops talking, you fill the space with more words, more explanations, more of yourself poured out, like an offering to a God who is not listening. You explain your choices before anyone questions them. You post something on social media and immediately follow it with a paragraph explaining why you posted it, what you were thinking, what you hope people will understand about your intentions. You make a decision at work, and before anyone has even had time to process it, you are justifying it, defending it, making sure everyone knows all the reasoning that went into it so they cannot possibly misunderstand or judge you. You have been conditioned to believe that mystery equals rudeness, that if you do not immediately disclose everything you are thinking and feeling, you are being dishonest or withholding or playing games. You have been taught that good people are transparent, that healthy relationships require complete openness, that if you truly trust someone, you should have no filter between your thoughts and your words. So you have become completely transparent, and you have discovered the painful truth that being fully known does not equal being fully loved. In fact, it often equals being fully dismissed. Watch how this plays out in your romantic relationships. Someone expresses interest in you, and you are so grateful, so excited, so terrified of losing this opportunity that you give them everything immediately. You text back within seconds of receiving their message, because you have been taught that making someone wait is playing games. You share your entire emotional state within the first few conversations, because you believe that vulnerability creates intimacy. You reveal your insecurities, your fears, your past traumas, your deepest longings before any foundation of trust has been established. And you wonder why they lose interest so quickly. You wonder why the intensity that felt so promising in the beginning fades into distance and eventual silence. You replay the conversations in your mind, trying to figure out what you did wrong, never realizing that what you did wrong was giving everything away before they had to work for any of it. In your professional life, the pattern repeats itself in different clothing, but with the same underlying desperation. You walk into meetings over-explaining your qualifications because you are terrified that people will not immediately recognize your value. You justify your decisions before anyone has challenged them because you cannot stand the thought of being questioned. You seek constant validation from colleagues and supervisors, asking if you did well, if they are happy with your work, if there is anything you should change. This constant seeking of approval dilutes your authority. People begin to see you not as a leader or expert, but as someone who needs reassurance, someone who is not confident in their own judgment, someone who can be easily swayed or manipulated because they are so desperate for external validation that they will change their position to please whoever is in front of them. In your friendships, you have become the emotional dumping ground. You are always available to listen, always ready to drop everything when someone needs to vent, always willing to give advice and support and empathy. And you tell yourself, this is what good friends do. This is what it means to be caring and present and trustworthy. But notice what happens. Notice that when you need support, those same friends are suddenly busy. Notice that your calls go to voicemail. Notice that your messages receive delayed responses or superficial reassurances. Notice that you know everything about their lives, their struggles, their dreams, their fears. But they know surprisingly little about yours, not because you haven't tried to share, but because they have never asked. You have become the person everyone vents to, but no one truly respects. The one who is always available but never prioritized. The friend people reach out to when they need something, but forget about when they are making plans for activities they actually want to do. You are useful, but not valued. Present, but not cherished. Known, but not interesting. The emotional cost of this constant performance is staggering. You are exhausted from the effort of maintaining relationships that feel fundamentally unbalanced. You give and give and give, and you receive crumbs in return, and you tell yourself that this is just how relationships work, that you are being selfless, that eventually people will recognize how much you have invested and reciprocate accordingly. But they do not reciprocate. They cannot, because you have taught them that your time, your attention, your emotional energy are not valuable. You have demonstrated through your constant availability that access to you costs nothing. And human beings, whether consciously or unconsciously, only value what costs them something. You feel resentment building beneath the surface. Resentment toward the people who take your openness for granted. Resentment toward yourself for continuing to offer so much to people who give so little in return. You feel angry that your honesty is met with distance, rather than the deep connection you were promised would result from being vulnerable and authentic. You are confused because you have done everything right according to what you were taught. You have been open and honest and available and vulnerable. You have shared your true self without filter or pretense, and instead of being loved more deeply, you feel more alone than ever. Instead of being valued for your authenticity, you feel dismissed for your predictability. There is a creeping suspicion that grows stronger with each interaction that confirms it. You have become too familiar, too predictable, too easy to categorize, and therefore too easy to dismiss. You are the person everyone understands completely, and therefore the person no one finds particularly interesting. Think about the last time someone asked you a genuine question about yourself. Not a polite greeting or a surface-level inquiry, but a real question that demonstrated they were curious about your inner world, your thoughts, your perspectives. How long has it been? Weeks? Months? Years? People do not ask because they already know. You have told them. You have told them everything. There is no mystery left to uncover, no depth left to explore. They have consumed the content of your personality and moved on to someone who requires more effort, more attention, more work to understand. People treat you like background music, pleasant enough when you are there, but they do not notice when you are gone. They do not miss your presence because your presence has always been guaranteed. You are the soundtrack to their lives, playing softly in the background while they focus their attention on people who feel less accessible, less available, less known. They do not invest deeply in you because they do not have to. Investment requires risk. Risk requires uncertainty. You have eliminated all uncertainty by making yourself completely known and completely available. There is no risk in getting close to you because you have already shown them everything there is to see. There is no mystery to unravel because you have unraveled yourself for them without requiring any effort on their part. They do not wonder about you because you have preemptively answered every question they might have had. They do not pursue you because you are already there, already available, already offering yourself before they have even decided if they want what you are offering. You have confused transparency with authenticity and accessibility with value. Here is the truth you have been avoiding. Transparency is not the same as authenticity. You can be deeply authentic while still being selective about what you reveal and when. Authenticity means being true to yourself, not performing your truth for an audience that has not earned the performance. Accessibility is not the same as value. Making yourself constantly available does not make people value you more. It makes them value you less because they have no frame of reference for what your presence is worth. They have never experienced your absence, so they have no basis for appreciating your presence. You have given yourself away too cheaply in a marketplace that determines value based on scarcity and effort required. You are the clearance item that everyone passes by on their way to something that costs more and therefore must be worth more. You are the message that gets read but not responded to, because you always respond so quickly that there is no urgency to reply. You are the friend who is always free, and therefore the friend who is never chosen when something interesting is happening. This is not sustainable. This is not healthy. This is not actually serving anyone, least of all yourself. The relationships built on your constant availability and total transparency are not deep connections. They are shallow transactions, where you provide emotional labor and receive almost nothing of substance in return. You are bleeding out your value in real time, and you keep wondering why you feel empty. You keep wondering why people do not appreciate what you are giving to them. You keep wondering why your honesty and vulnerability and openness do not create the intimacy you were promised they would create. The answer is simple and painful. Human beings are wired to pursue what is slightly out of reach. We are wired to value what we have to work for. We are wired to wonder about what we do not fully understand. When you eliminate the pursuit, the work, the wondering, you eliminate the psychological mechanisms that create fascination, respect, and genuine desire to know someone deeply. You have become the person everyone understands completely, and therefore you have become the person no one finds particularly worth understanding at all. But understanding why you have become forgettable is only half the solution. The other half is understanding why mystery works at all. Why does withholding information create fascination while revealing everything creates indifference? The answer lies not in philosophy or poetry, but in the hard wiring of your brain, in the neurological mechanisms that govern attention, desire, and human connection. Your brain is a puzzle-solving machine. It has evolved over millions of years to identify patterns, complete incomplete information, and understand what it does not yet know. This is not a preference. This is fundamental to how your neural architecture functions. When you encounter something that is partially known but not fully understood, your brain activates in a specific way. It begins working to fill in the gaps, to solve the mystery, to complete the pattern. This is called the information gap theory, and it explains phenomena you have experienced your entire life without understanding the mechanism beneath them. It explains why cliffhangers in television shows keep you thinking about the story for an entire week until the next episode airs. It explains why unanswered questions loop in your mind, demanding resolution, refusing to let you focus on anything else until you find the answer. It explains why people who remain slightly mysterious keep you fascinated, while people who tell you everything immediately become forgettable within hours. When someone gives you all the answers immediately, your brain stops working. There is no puzzle left to solve. There is no pattern left to complete. There is no curiosity left to satisfy. The person becomes neurologically boring, not because they are inherently uninteresting, but because they have eliminated the cognitive engagement that creates sustained attention. Think about the last time you were genuinely fascinated by someone, not attracted to their appearance, not impressed by their accomplishments, genuinely fascinated by who they were as a person. What created that fascination? Was it that they told you their entire life story within the first conversation? Or was it that they revealed just enough to make you curious, to make you wonder, to make you want to know more? The people who captivate you are the ones who create information gaps. They answer questions, but their answers generate new questions. They share stories, but the stories hint at depths they have not fully revealed. They make observations that suggest entire philosophical frameworks you have not yet explored with them. They leave you wanting more, not because they are manipulating you, but because they are operating in alignment with how human brains actually function. Now consider the neurochemistry beneath attraction and engagement. There is a neurotransmitter called dopamine that most people misunderstand completely. They think dopamine is released when you get what you want, when you achieve the goal, when you obtain the reward. This is incorrect. Dopamine is released in anticipation of getting what you want. It is the neurochemical of the hunt, not the kill, of the pursuit, not the capture, of the wondering, not the knowing. This has profound implications for how you present yourself to the world. When you make yourself completely known immediately, you eliminate the dopamine-driven anticipation that makes relationships exciting. You give people the destination without requiring them to take the journey. And human beings are far more motivated by journeys than destinations. The pursuit creates pleasure. The wondering creates engagement. The not quite knowing creates the neurochemical state that we interpret as fascination. This is why relationships that start with intense, immediate disclosure often burn out quickly. The dopamine spike is high at first because the rapid revelation of intimate information feels exciting. But there is nowhere to go from complete disclosure. The anticipation is gone. The mystery is solved. The pattern is complete. The brain stops producing the neurochemicals associated with interest and moves on to find a new puzzle to solve. When you reveal yourself gradually, you create sustained dopamine release over time. Each new piece of information, each additional layer of depth, each slowly revealed aspect of your personality triggers another anticipatory response. The other person's brain stays engaged because it is constantly working to understand you more fully. The relationship maintains its neurochemical vitality because the journey of discovery is ongoing rather than completed in the first conversation. But if the neuroscience is so clear, if the mechanisms are so obvious, why do you continue to overshare? Why do you continue to make yourself completely known despite the fact that it consistently fails to create the connection you are seeking? The answer lies in your conditioning, in what you were taught from childhood about what it means to be a good person, an honest person, a trustworthy person. You were taught that good people are open, that they share freely, that they do not keep secrets or hide parts of themselves. You were taught that keeping anything private is the same as being dishonest, that boundaries are the same as walls, that if you truly trust someone, you should tell them everything without hesitation or filter. This is a fundamental misunderstanding of how trust, respect, and fascination actually work. Trust is not built through immediate disclosure. Trust is built gradually through demonstrated reliability, through showing up consistently, through honoring your commitments, through maintaining confidentiality when someone shares something sensitive with you, through proving over time that you are safe to be vulnerable with. When you tell someone everything immediately, you are not building trust. You are demanding that they trust you with your own vulnerability before they have had time to demonstrate they deserve that trust. You are handing them intimate information about yourself and hoping they will treat it with care, even though they have given you no evidence that they will. Real trust develops slowly. It develops through reciprocity, through both people gradually revealing more of themselves as the other person demonstrates they can handle what is being revealed with respect and discretion. This gradual revelation is not dishonesty. It is wisdom. It is protecting your depth from people who have not yet proven they deserve access to it. Respect does not come from accessibility. This is another fundamental misconception you have been taught. You believe that if you make yourself available, agreeable, accommodating, people will respect you for your generosity and kindness. But the opposite happens. When you have no boundaries, when you are available at all times, When you accommodate everyone's needs while neglecting your own, people do not respect you. They take advantage of you. Respect comes from boundaries, from demonstrating that your time is valuable and not infinitely available, from showing that your energy is limited and you choose carefully how to invest it, from proving that access to your inner world is a privilege that must be earned, not a right that is automatically granted to anyone who asks. Fascination comes from depth that reveals itself slowly. Think about shallow water versus deep water. When you look at shallow water, you can see the bottom immediately. You understand the entire ecosystem within seconds. There is nothing left to explore, nothing left to discover. But deep water is different. You can see the surface, but you know there are depths beneath that you cannot access without diving. There are ecosystems and mysteries and complexities that will only reveal themselves if you invest the time and effort to explore. You have been presenting yourself as shallow water, showing your bottom immediately, assuming that people will appreciate your transparency. But people are not drawn to shallow water. They are drawn to depth, to the promise of discovery, to the challenge of understanding something complex and layered and not immediately comprehensible. Beneath all of this oversharing, beneath the constant explanation and the desperate availability, is fear. You are terrified of being misunderstood. You are terrified of being judged. You are terrified of being rejected. So you try to control these outcomes by managing information, by telling people everything so they cannot possibly misunderstand you, by explaining your intentions so they cannot possibly judge you unfairly, by making yourself completely available so they cannot possibly reject you. But your strategy is failing because it is based on a false premise. The premise that if people know your full story, your complete intentions, your entire emotional landscape, they will finally see that you are worthy of love and acceptance. That if you just explain yourself thoroughly enough, present yourself clearly enough, make yourself available enough, people will recognize your value and treat you accordingly. The opposite happens. When you hand people your entire self without making them work for it, they do not value it. They do not protect it. They do not treasure it. Because human beings only value what costs them something, and you have made yourself free in a world that equates free with worthless. This is not a moral judgment. This is not about whether it is right or wrong that people assign value based on scarcity and effort required. This is simply how human psychology functions. When something is easily obtained, our brains assume it is not particularly valuable. When something requires investment of time, attention, and effort, our brains assume it must be worth that investment. You are giving yourself away for free and wondering why people do not treat you as valuable. You are making yourself infinitely available and wondering why people do not prioritize time with you. You are revealing everything immediately and wondering why people do not find you fascinating. The answer is not that there is something wrong with you. The answer is that you are working against fundamental principles of human neurology and psychology. The paradigm shift you need is this. Mystery is not deception. Selective revelation is not manipulation. Boundaries are not walls. Privacy is not dishonesty. These are protective mechanisms that honor the reality that your depth, your story, your inner world are valuable. Too valuable to be given away carelessly. To people who haven't demonstrated, they will honor what you are sharing. Silence can communicate more than words. Withheld information creates more interest than disclosed information. And the people who truly deserve to know you will be willing to invest the time and attention required to understand you gradually. This is not playing games. This is respecting yourself enough to be selective about who gets access to your depths. This shift from neurological understanding to practical transformation happens through stages. You cannot leap from where you are now to complete mastery overnight. Personal magnetism develops through levels, each one building on the insights of the previous, each one requiring you to let go of something that once felt essential to your survival. Understanding these levels helps you see where you are, where you have been, and where you are going. Level 1 is the oversharer. This is where most people exist, and this is likely where you are right now. This level, you lead with your wounds. Someone asks how you are doing, and you tell them. You actually tell them. You explain the argument you had with your partner, the stress you are feeling at work, the anxiety that woke you up at 3 a.m, the existential crisis you are navigating. You believe this is authenticity. You believe this is being real. You explain your decisions unprompted. You make a choice, and before anyone has even had time to notice, you are justifying it, defending it, making sure everyone understands the reasoning behind it. You post something online and immediately follow it with paragraphs of explanation because you cannot stand the thought of being misinterpreted. You fill every pause with more information. Silence terrifies you because you interpret it as judgment or boredom or rejection. So you talk. You fill the space with words, with stories, with details that no one asked for. But you offer anyway because the alternative, the quiet, feels too dangerous to allow. You believe that the more people know about you, the more they will like you. This is the fundamental misconception that keeps you trapped at this level. You think that if people just understood your full story, your complete context, your entire emotional landscape, they would finally see your value. So you give them everything. You hand over your history, your vulnerabilities, your fears, your dreams, all of it, immediately, and without requiring any investment from them. You confuse vulnerability with verbal diarrhea. You have been taught that vulnerability is the key to connection, and this is true. But you have misunderstood what vulnerability actually means. Vulnerability is not telling everyone everything. Vulnerability is selectively sharing meaningful truths with people who have earned the right to hear them. What you are doing is not vulnerability. It is anxiety disguised as openness. People know everything about you, but they do not actually know you at all. This is the paradox of level 1. You have given them so many facts, so much information, so much content about your life that they can recite your biography. But they haven't discovered meaning because you did not give them space to discover anything. You told them before they could wonder. You explained before they could be curious. You are transparent, available, and ultimately forgettable. Level 2 is the performer. At this level, you have learned through painful experience that complete transparency doesn't work. You have noticed that people lose interest when you share too much. So you have adapted. You have created a curated version of yourself that you present to the world. You share selectively now, but only the parts that make you look good, interesting, accomplished. You have built a personal brand, a social media presence, a carefully crafted image of who you want people to think you are. You post the successes, but not the struggles. You share the highlights, but not the ordinary moments. You present a version of yourself that is always composed, always interesting, always slightly better than everyone else. This is better than level 1. You are no longer hemorrhaging your emotional life to anyone who will listen. You have learned some discretion, but this level is still exhausting because you are constantly performing. You are managing your image, curating your content, making sure that every interaction reinforces the character you have created. People are interested in the character you play, not in who you actually are. They follow your social media because the performance is entertaining. They engage with you at parties because you are good at maintaining the persona. But there is no real connection here, because the person they are connecting with does not actually exist outside of your performance. The mystery at this level is false, because it is based on concealment of your real self rather than thoughtful revelation of your authentic depth. You are not selectively sharing your truth. You are hiding your truth and replacing it with fiction. This creates a different kind of exhaustion than level 1, but it is exhaustion nonetheless. The exhaustion of maintaining a performance that never ends. Level 3 is the selective revealer. This is where real magnetism begins. This is the level where you understand that your story, your thoughts, your inner world are valuable, and you share them intentionally with people who have demonstrated they deserve access. You are no longer oversharing out of anxiety. You are no longer performing a false version of yourself out of insecurity. You are being genuinely you, but you are choosing carefully when to reveal that genuine self and to whom. You are not withholding out of fear or manipulation. This is crucial. The difference between level 2 and level 3 is the difference between hiding and honoring. At level 2, you hide your real self because you are afraid it is not good enough. At level 3, you honor your real self by recognizing it is too valuable to be given away carelessly. You listen more than you speak. This is one of the clearest markers of level 3. Instead of filling every silence with your own stories, your own thoughts, your own experiences, you ask questions. You draw others out. You make them feel heard and valued. And in the process, you learn who deserves to hear your stories and who does not. You ask questions that reveal others while revealing little about yourself until trust has been established. You are gathering information about whether this person is safe, whether they are reciprocal, whether they have the emotional maturity to handle what you might eventually share. You are not playing games. You are being discerning. You create space for people to wonder about you, to be curious about your thoughts, to work for your trust and attention. This space is not manipulation. It is respect. Respect for yourself, and respect for the reality that genuine connection cannot be rushed. When people have to work to understand you, when they have to invest time and attention to earn your trust, they value the relationship more deeply because they have invested in it. At level 3, you are magnetic because you are genuinely mysterious in the healthiest sense of that word. You have depth, you have complexity, you have layers that reveal themselves slowly to people who stay, who invest, who prove themselves worthy of deeper access. This is not performance. This is authentic, selective revelation. Level 4 is the integrated mystery. At this level, being selectively mysterious is no longer a strategy you employ. It is no longer something you think about or consciously practice. It is simply who you are. You have become so comfortable with yourself, so at peace with your own depth, that you do not need external validation to know your worth. You share when it serves the relationship and the moment, not when it serves your ego or your anxiety. You are not sharing to prove yourself or to ease your discomfort with silence or to manage how people perceive you. You share because the relationship has developed to the point where sharing this particular thing at this particular moment will deepen the connection in a meaningful way. You are fully present, but not fully knowable. People who interact with you feel your complete attention and genuine engagement. But they also sense that there are depths to you they have not yet accessed. Not because you are withholding, but because you contain genuine complexity that cannot be fully known in a few conversations, or even a few years. You have depth that reveals itself naturally over time to those who stay. This is organic rather than strategic. You do not have a calculated plan for when to reveal what. You simply live with such integrity and self-possession that layers of your personality, your history, your inner world unfold naturally as relationships deepen. The people who invest time, who demonstrate trustworthiness, who reciprocate vulnerability, gradually come to know you more fully. The people who do not invest remain at the periphery, and you are completely at peace with that. You have stopped trying to be understood by everyone. This is perhaps the greatest freedom of level 4. You recognize that most people will only ever know the surface of who you are, and this does not bother you. You do not need to be deeply known by every person you encounter. You only need to be deeply known by the few people who matter, who have earned that access through demonstrated reliability and reciprocal depth. You allow the right people to understand you gradually. There is no urgency, no desperation, no anxiety about whether they see your value. You trust that people who are meant to be in your life will invest the time to truly know you. People who are not meant to be in your life will fall away, and their departure does not diminish your sense of self-worth, because your worth is not dependent on external validation. This is where true magnetic presence lives. Not in performance, not in hiding, not even in conscious strategy, but in the deep self-possession that comes from knowing who you are, valuing what you contain, and sharing it selectively with people who have proven they will honor what you are offering. The progression through these 4 levels is not about becoming less authentic. This is essential to understand. You are not becoming fake or manipulative or dishonest as you move from level 1 to level 4. You are becoming more intentional with your authenticity. You are recognizing that your true self is not diminished by selective sharing. It is protected, honored, and made more valuable by it. Understanding the levels of magnetism gives you a map, but you need more than a map to travel. You need a vehicle. You need a practical method that you can implement today, in your next conversation, in your next interaction. You need a framework that transforms abstract understanding into concrete action. This framework is called the Reveal and Retreat method, and it is the central practice that will rebuild how people experience you. The method works in 3 distinct movements, like a dance. And like a dance, it requires practice before it feels natural. But once you internalize the rhythm, it becomes as automatic as breathing. The 3 movements are the intentional reveal, the strategic retreat, and the observational assessment. Together, they create a systematic approach to building fascination through intentional information control. Movement 1 is the intentional reveal. When you do speak about yourself, you must make it count. This is where most people fail. They either say nothing, which creates distance rather than mystery, or they say everything, which eliminates mystery entirely. The skill is in choosing one meaningful detail, one genuine thought, one authentic feeling, not your entire autobiography, not your complete emotional state. One thread of truth that invites curiosity without satisfying it completely. Imagine someone asks what you do for work. The level 1 response is to explain your entire career journey, every job you have held, every transition you have made, the reasons you chose this field, your long-term goals, your frustrations with the industry, and your hopes for the future. By the time you finish, the other person knows everything and has no reason to ask another question. The level 3 response is different. You might say, "I help people find clarity in chaos." Then you pause. Then you ask them a question. You have revealed something true and intriguing. You have given them a glimpse into what you value and what you do. But you haven't given them the full picture. They have to work for more. They have to ask follow-up questions if they want to understand what that actually means in practical terms. This intentional reveal works because it creates what neuroscientists call an information gap. Their brain now knows that there is something to know, but it does not yet know what that something is. This gap creates curiosity. Curiosity creates engagement. Engagement creates the psychological state where people find you interesting rather than forgettable. The reveal must be genuine. This is not about creating a mysterious persona that is divorced from your actual self. This is about finding the most intriguing, true thing you could say in this moment, and saying only that thing. It must be authentic, or the entire method becomes manipulation. But authentic does not mean exhaustive. You can be completely truthful while being highly selective about which truths you share and when. Movement 2 is the strategic retreat. After revealing something meaningful, you must create space. This is the movement that most people cannot tolerate because it feels uncomfortable. You have just said something about yourself, and every instinct in your body is screaming at you to keep talking, to explain more, to make sure they understood, to fill the silence that follows your statement. You must resist this instinct. The strategic retreat means not filling every silence. It means not over-explaining. It means not following up your revelation with 10 more pieces of information to ensure they understood. You let the reveal breathe. You give it space to land. You allow the other person time to process what you just shared and decide how they want to respond. One of the most effective ways to execute the strategic retreat is to shift the focus back to the other person. After you have shared your one meaningful detail, you ask them a thoughtful question. You change the subject to them. This serves multiple purposes. It demonstrates that you are interested in them, not just interested in talking about yourself. It creates reciprocity in the conversation, and it takes the pressure off the silence that might otherwise follow your reveal. The strategic retreat creates what psychologists call the Zeigarnik effect. This is the tendency of the human brain to remember incomplete information better than complete information. When you finish telling your entire story, when you explain everything thoroughly, when you tie up all the loose ends, their brain files the information away as complete and moves on. But when you do not finish the story, when you leave threads hanging, when you create unanswered questions, their brain keeps working on it even after the conversation ends. This is why you think about certain people long after you have stopped talking to them. Their brain has created an open loop that your brain wants to close. You wonder about them. You replay the conversation. You think about what they meant, what they were implying, what lies beneath the surface of what they shared. This is not accidental. This is the result of them, consciously or unconsciously, employing the strategic retreat. The retreat must not be cold or distant. This is a crucial distinction. You are not withdrawing affection or interest. You are not punishing the other person for not being interesting enough. You are simply creating space. You are being warm and engaged, while also being boundaried and selective. You are present without being overwhelming. You are available without being desperate. Movement 3 is the observational assessment. This is where the method becomes diagnostic, rather than just interactive. You pay attention to how people respond to the space you create. This tells you everything you need to know about whether they deserve deeper access to your inner world. Do they ask follow-up questions? This demonstrates genuine interest. When you share something meaningful and then create space, do they lean into that space with curiosity? Do they want to know more? Do they ask thoughtful questions that show they were actually listening to what you said? Or do they let your statement hang in the air, uncurious, unengaged? Do they share something equally meaningful? This demonstrates reciprocity. Healthy relationships, whether romantic, professional, or platonic, require balance. If you share something genuine and they respond with something superficial, you have learned that this is not a reciprocal relationship. If you share vulnerability and they respond with a story of equal vulnerability, you have learned that this person might be safe to go deeper with. Do they seem comfortable with the silence? This demonstrates emotional maturity. People who are secure in themselves can tolerate pauses in conversation. They do not need constant verbal stimulation to feel comfortable. They can sit with the space you create and allow it to be what it is. People who are insecure will fill that space with nervous chatter, with jokes to break the tension, with rapid subject changes to avoid the discomfort they feel. Or do they make it about themselves? This is the clearest signal that you should not invest deeply in this relationship. If you share something meaningful and they immediately redirect the conversation to their own experience without acknowledging what you shared, without asking questions, without demonstrating any curiosity about you, they have told you exactly who they are. They are a taker, not a giver. They are interested in an audience, not in connection. This observational assessment is not judgmental. You are not deciding that people are good or bad, worthy or unworthy. You are simply noticing patterns of behavior that tell you how much of yourself to share and how quickly. Some people earn deeper access through their responses. Some people reveal that they should remain acquaintances rather than close friends. This is information, not condemnation. Apply this method to different contexts and watch how it transforms your interactions. In dating, this means not texting your entire emotional state every time you communicate. It means not being perpetually available. It means not explaining yourself constantly. You share something real, something meaningful, something true. Then you create space for them to pursue. If they pursue, if they demonstrate interest and reciprocity, you share more. If they do not, you have learned everything you need to know. In professional settings, this means not over-justifying your decisions. It means not seeking constant approval from colleagues and supervisors. It means not filling meetings with nervous explanation. You state your position clearly. You provide the necessary context. Then you allow the weight of your conviction to speak through your confident silence. People respect leaders who are comfortable with silence more than leaders who fill every pause with words. In friendships, this means not being the perpetual emotional dumping ground. It means not always being the one who reaches out first. It means not making yourself so available that people take you for granted. You share when it is reciprocal, when the other person has demonstrated that they value what you offer by offering something of equal value in return. The key principle underlying all three movements is this: Every revelation should create more curiosity than it satisfies. Every answer should generate another question. Every glimpse into your inner world should make people want to see more, not make them feel like they have seen everything. You are not hiding. You are not being evasive. You are revealing yourself in a way that honors the depth of what you contain by not giving it all away at once. This is the framework. This is the method. This is how you rebuild fascination in every area of your life. Practice it deliberately until it becomes natural. Start in low-stakes conversations until you develop confidence. Then apply it in contexts that matter. Watch how people respond differently to you. Watch how they lean in. Watch how they remember you. Watch how they work to earn more of your time, your attention, your trust. But the reveal and retreat method is only the foundation. Once you understand the basic framework, you need advanced tools that reinforce and deepen your magnetic presence. These are not tricks or manipulations. These are practices that cultivate genuine depth, that train you to honor your own complexity, that transform mystery from a strategy into a way of being. Tool 1 is the power of the pause. This is perhaps the simplest tool to understand and the hardest to implement, because it requires you to fight against every anxious impulse in your body. The practice is this. Train yourself to wait 3 full seconds before responding to questions, comments, or requests. 3 seconds feels like an eternity when you are accustomed to responding immediately. But those 3 seconds change everything. The pause does several things simultaneously. It demonstrates that you are thoughtful rather than reactive. When someone asks you a question and you pause before answering, you communicate that you are actually considering what they asked, rather than just waiting for your turn to talk. This makes your eventual response carry more weight, because people understand it is the product of genuine thought rather than knee-jerk reaction. The pause creates a moment of tension that makes people pay closer attention to what you will say. Human beings are wired to pay attention to gaps, to breaks in expected patterns. When you pause where most people would rush to fill the silence, you create anticipation. People lean in, they focus, they prepare to receive something worth the wait. The pause prevents you from over-explaining or oversharing out of nervousness. Most of your oversharing happens in the first 3 seconds of a response. You feel the pressure of silence. You feel the anxiety of being perceived as slow or uncertain, and you start talking before you have decided what you actually want to say. The 3-second pause gives you time to choose your words rather than just spilling whatever comes to mind first. The pause signals that your words have weight and are worth waiting for. People who speak immediately, who respond without thinking, who fill every silence with rapid commentary, train others to half-listen to them because nothing they say is particularly considered or valuable. But when you consistently pause before speaking, people learn that when you do speak, it matters. They develop the habit of actually listening to you rather than just waiting for their turn to talk. Practice this pause in low-stakes conversations until it becomes natural in high-stakes situations. Start with casual interactions, where the outcome does not matter. Someone asks how your day was. Pause for 3 seconds before answering. Someone asks what you want for dinner. Pause. Feel the discomfort of the silence. Resist the urge to fill it immediately. Notice how the other person responds. Notice how your answer, when it comes, feels more intentional. Tool 2 is the question redirect. This is the art of answering questions with thoughtful questions of your own. When someone asks what you think about something, instead of immediately sharing your full opinion, you might ask what aspects they are most curious about, or what their initial reaction is. This serves multiple purposes that compound over time. The question redirect makes the other person feel heard and valued. Most people ask questions, but do not actually want to hear long answers. They want to share their own perspective. When you redirect with a question, you give them permission to do what they actually wanted to do anyway, which is talk about their own thoughts. This makes them feel good in your presence, and people associate you with the positive feelings you create in them. The redirect gives you more information about what they are really asking. Often the surface question is not the real question. When someone asks what you think about a political issue, they might actually be trying to determine if you are in their tribe, if you are safe to share their real opinions with, if you will judge them for what they believe. When you redirect with a question, you learn what they are actually trying to find out before you commit to a position. The redirect prevents you from revealing more than necessary. Every time you share your full opinion immediately, you give people information they can use to categorize you, to put you in a box, to decide they understand you completely. When you redirect, you maintain some mystery about your actual position, while still engaging meaningfully in the conversation. The redirect positions you as someone who thinks deeply before speaking. People who immediately launch into their opinions seem reactive, ideological, rigid. People who ask thoughtful questions before sharing their perspective seem wise, considered, open-minded. This positioning makes people respect your eventual opinions more when you do share them, because they have been earned through genuine inquiry rather than reflexive judgment. Tool 3 is the selective vulnerability filter. Not all vulnerability creates connection. This is crucial to understand because you have been taught that vulnerability is always good, that sharing your struggles is always brave, that emotional openness is always the path to intimacy. But this is false. Some vulnerability is strategic and deepens relationships. Some vulnerability is anxiety-driven and pushes people away. Before sharing something personal, ask yourself 3 questions. First, am I sharing this to create genuine connection or to ease my own anxiety? If you are sharing because the silence feels uncomfortable, because you are nervous and need to fill space, because you want reassurance that you are still likable, you are not being vulnerable. You are being anxious. True vulnerability comes from a grounded place, not from a desperate place. Second, has this person earned the right to know this about me through demonstrated trustworthiness? Earning the right to deep disclosure takes time. It requires that the person has shown up consistently, has kept confidences, has reciprocated vulnerability, has proven through their actions that they will treat what you share with care. If they have not earned this right, sharing deep vulnerability with them is not brave. It is careless with your own tender parts. Third, will sharing this serve the relationship or just satisfy my need to be fully known? Sometimes you want to share something because you are tired of carrying it alone, because you want someone to understand you completely, because you hope that full disclosure will finally make someone love you the way you want to be loved. But sharing for these reasons often backfires because it places a burden on the other person that they did not sign up for and may not be equipped to handle. If you cannot answer these 3 questions affirmatively, save that revelation for someone who has earned it. This does not make you dishonest. This makes you discerning. This makes you someone who values their own depth enough to protect it from casual exposure. Tool 4 is the mystery of absence. You cannot be magnetic if you are omnipresent. This is simple mathematics. Value is determined by scarcity. When you are always available, always responding immediately, always free when someone wants your time, you train people to take you for granted. Create deliberate periods of unavailability, not as punishment or manipulation, but as preservation of your energy and maintenance of your value. Do not respond to every text immediately. Let some messages sit for a few hours, even if you have read them. This does not make you rude. This makes you someone with a life rich enough that you are not constantly monitoring your phone, waiting for external validation. Do not be available for every invitation. Decline some social events, even if you have no other plans, because you value your solitude and your energy. Do not fill every weekend with obligations. Leave space for yourself. When you return from absence, you are more appreciated because your presence has been missed. People begin to understand that access to you is a privilege, not a right. They start valuing the time you give them because they recognize it is not unlimited. They stop taking you for granted because they have experienced what it feels like when you are not there. Tool 5 is the depth demonstration. When you do speak, demonstrate depth rather than breadth. Instead of sharing 10 superficial facts about yourself, share one meaningful observation about life, human nature, or the world. Instead of listing your accomplishments, tell one story that reveals your values. Instead of explaining what you do, explain why it matters to you. Depth creates fascination. When you share something that reveals how you think, not just what you have done, people become curious about what else is happening in your mind. When you make an observation that they have never considered before, you become someone worth listening to. When you tell a story that illuminates your values rather than just your resume, you become someone worth knowing. Breadth creates information fatigue. When you list facts, achievements, experiences, people's brains glaze over. They are receiving data, but not meaning. They are learning about you, but not understanding you. Breadth is forgettable. Depth is unforgettable. Tool 6 is the comfortable silence. Learn to be at peace with pauses in conversation. Most people fill silence with nervous chatter because they interpret silence as awkwardness or judgment. But silence, when held with confidence, communicates self-possession and emotional maturity. It creates space for deeper thoughts to emerge. It allows the other person to process and respond more thoughtfully. It demonstrates that you do not need constant verbal stimulation to feel comfortable. Practice sitting in silence during conversations until you no longer feel the compulsion to fill every pause. This takes conscious effort at first. You will feel the anxiety rising. You will feel the urge to say something, anything, to break the tension. Resist that urge. Breathe. Notice that the silence is not actually uncomfortable unless you make it so. Notice that the other person often uses that silence to formulate a more thoughtful response than they would have if you had kept talking. Do not try to implement all of these tools simultaneously. This is critical. If you try to pause before every response, while also redirecting every question, while also filtering every vulnerability, while also creating absence, while also demonstrating depth, while also sitting in silence, you will become so focused on technique that you lose touch with genuine presence. You will become a performer, again, just with different material. Choose one tool that resonates most strongly with you Practice it deliberately for 2 weeks until it becomes natural. Then add another. The goal is not to become someone who uses techniques. The goal is to become someone who naturally embodies the qualities that make these techniques effective: thoughtfulness, self-possession, intentionality, respect for your own depth. When you embody these qualities, the techniques become unnecessary because the presence becomes authentic. These tools are powerful, but tools alone are not enough. You can master every technique, practice every method, implement every strategy, and still fail to become magnetic if you do not build the infrastructure that supports lasting transformation. Magnetic presence is not a performance you deliver when you remember to. It is a state of being that emerges from how you live your entire life. This requires foundations, not just tactics. Foundation 1 is inner world. Cultivation. You cannot be fascinating to others if you are not first fascinating to yourself. This is the truth that undermines every technique-focused approach to personal magnetism. If your inner world is empty, if you have no thoughts that interest you, no passions that absorb you, no perspectives that challenge you, then all the strategic silence in the world will not make you magnetic. You will just be quiet and empty rather than quiet and deep. Develop a rich inner life that does not depend on external validation or constant social stimulation. Read books that challenge your thinking, not books that confirm what you already believe. Develop skills that absorb your attention for their own sake, not because they will impress other people. Pursue interests that have nothing to do with how they make you look to others. Learn something difficult. Create something meaningful. Think about questions that do not have easy answers. When you have a genuinely interesting inner world, you naturally become more selective about what you share, because you know that what is inside you is valuable and should not be given away carelessly. You do not need to remind yourself to maintain mystery. The mystery maintains itself because you contain actual depth that cannot be communicated in casual conversation. Foundation 2 is the solitude practice. Spend regular time alone, not just physically alone, but genuinely disconnected from all social input and output. No phone, no social media, no podcasts, no distractions. Just you and your thoughts. This feels terrifying at first if you are not accustomed to it. The silence feels too loud. Your own mind feels too chaotic. You become aware of everything you use constant stimulation to avoid. But this practice serves multiple purposes that compound over time. It trains you to be comfortable with yourself, which eliminates the desperate need for constant connection. When you can sit with yourself in silence and find peace there, you stop clinging to other people for the sense of aliveness that only they can provide. You stop oversharing out of anxiety, because you are not anxious about being alone with who you are. Solitude allows you to process your experiences and develop your own perspectives rather than just absorbing others' opinions. When you are constantly consuming other people's thoughts through social media, podcasts, conversations, you never develop your own. You become an echo chamber of popular ideas rather than a source of original thinking. Time alone gives you space to integrate what you have experienced, to form your own conclusions, to become someone with actual perspectives rather than just borrowed opinions. Solitude creates distance from the social world that makes you more appreciative and more selective when you do engage. When you are always connected, always available, always in the middle of social interaction, people blend together. Conversations become routine. Relationships become obligations. But when you spend time alone, when you give yourself distance from the social sphere, you return to it with fresh eyes. You notice who actually matters. You appreciate quality interaction because you have experienced the peace of quality solitude. Foundation 3 is boundary architecture. Build clear, consistent boundaries around your time, energy, and emotional availability. This does not mean being cold or withholding. This means honoring the reality that you have limited resources, and those resources should be invested in people and activities that genuinely matter. Learn to say no without over-explaining. Most people cannot do this. They say no, and then immediately launch into a paragraph of justification, apologizing for having boundaries, making sure the other person knows they would say yes if circumstances were different. This undermines the boundary completely. Say no clearly and kindly. You do not owe anyone an explanation for how you choose to spend your time. Learn to decline invitations without feeling guilty. You are allowed to prioritize your energy over other people's social events. You are allowed to choose solitude over obligation. You are allowed to say no to things you do not want to do, even if you have no good excuse for declining. Your preference is enough. Learn to protect your time without seeking permission. You do not need to ask if it is okay to have boundaries. You do not need to make sure everyone is comfortable with your choices. You simply make the choices that serve your well-being and let other people respond however they respond. When you have strong boundaries, people respect you more because you have demonstrated that you respect yourself. They learn that your time is valuable, that your energy is not infinite, that access to your inner world is earned, not assumed. This respect is the foundation of magnetic presence. Foundation 4 is the consistency code. Mystery loses its power if it is inconsistent. You cannot be selectively mysterious one day and desperately oversharing the next. You cannot maintain strong boundaries in one relationship and have none in another. Your presence, your communication style, your level of availability should be relatively consistent across contexts. This consistency builds trust because people know what to expect from you. They understand your patterns. They learn how you operate. And paradoxically, this predictability in your behavior creates space for unpredictability in your depth. They know you will not overshare. So when you do share something meaningful, it carries weight. They know you are not always available. So when you do make time for them, they appreciate it. Consistency also builds fascination because your mystery is reliable rather than chaotic. Chaotic mystery is just instability. It is someone who is unpredictable in ways that make them exhausting rather than intriguing. Reliable mystery is someone who is consistently boundaried, consistently intentional, consistently self-possessed, which makes the depths they do reveal feel like genuine gifts rather than random emotional outbursts. Foundation 5 is physical presence. Your body language, your pace of movement, your vocal tone all communicate as much as your words. You can say all the right things while undermining them completely with anxious body language. You can practice strategic silence while fidgeting in ways that communicate you are uncomfortable with that silence. Slow down your movements. Most people move through the world with frantic energy, rushing from one thing to the next, communicating through their physical pace that they are anxious and overwhelmed. When you deliberately slow your movements, you communicate calm. You communicate that you are not being chased by anything, not running toward anything, simply present in this moment. Lower your vocal register slightly. High, fast speech communicates anxiety. Low, slow speech communicates confidence. You do not need to force an unnatural voice. But notice if you speak from your throat versus your chest. Notice if you rush your words or allow them to land with weight. Maintain steady eye contact without staring. Look at people when they speak, and when you speak, do not let your eyes dart around the room looking for escape or validation. Do not stare unblinkingly in a way that makes people uncomfortable. Find the balance that communicates you are fully present. Take up space without apologizing for it. Do not make yourself small. Do not hunch or curl inward. Stand or sit with your full stature. Use gestures that are open rather than closed. Communicate through your physical presence that you have a right to be here, and you are not seeking permission to exist. When you move and speak with deliberate calm, you communicate that you are not anxious, not seeking approval, not desperate to fill space. This physical self-possession makes people pay more attention when you do speak, because your presence suggests that your words will be worth the wait. Foundation 6 is energy management. You cannot maintain magnetic presence if you are constantly depleted. This means getting serious about sleep, nutrition, exercise, and stress management. Not because you are trying to look good, but because sustainable mystery requires sustainable energy. When you are exhausted, you default to your worst habits. You overshare out of anxiety because you do not have the energy to maintain intentional boundaries. You seek validation out of insecurity because you do not have the internal resources to validate yourself. You fill silence out of discomfort because you do not have the mental clarity to be comfortable with pauses. When you are well-resourced, when you have slept enough and eaten well and moved your body and managed your stress, you can maintain the intentionality that true magnetism requires. You have the cognitive capacity to pause before speaking. You have the emotional stability to sit with silence. You have the physical presence to move through the world with calm rather than chaos. Foundation 7 is environmental design. Your physical environment should reflect the kind of presence you want to cultivate. Create spaces that invite contemplation rather than distraction. Minimize clutter that fragments your attention. Design your home to be a sanctuary where you can retreat and recharge rather than just a place where you sleep between social obligations. When your environment supports depth and reflection, maintaining mysterious presence becomes easier because you are not constantly fighting against chaos and distraction. You are supported by your surroundings in becoming the person you want to be. Your space reinforces your values rather than undermining them. The principle underlying all 7 foundations is this: magnetic presence is not something you do. It is something you are. And who you are is shaped by how you spend your time, how you care for yourself, how you design your life, and how deeply you have cultivated your inner world. Build these foundations, and the techniques become unnecessary because the presence becomes authentic. You are not performing mystery. You are embodying depth. These foundations transform who you are at the deepest level. But understanding why they work, understanding the science beneath the transformation, strengthens your commitment to the practice. When you know that what you are doing is not manipulation, but alignment with fundamental principles of human neurology and psychology, you can proceed with confidence and compassion rather than guilt or hesitation. Your brain has evolved over millions of years to pay attention to things that are unpredictable but not random, novel but not chaotic. Neuroscientists call this the reward prediction error, and it is the difference between what you expected to happen and what actually happened. This mechanism exists because survival required your ancestors to notice when patterns changed, when the environment shifted, when something unexpected occurred that might signal danger or opportunity. When someone is completely predictable, your brain stops generating dopamine around them because there are no surprises. Your neural systems have learned their patterns, categorized them as known and safe, and moved on to allocating attention to things that are less certain. This is not conscious. You do not decide to find predictable people boring. Your brain simply stops producing the neurochemicals that create engagement and fascination. When someone is completely random, your brain categorizes them as unreliable and stops investing attention. Random behavior does not create fascination. It creates exhaustion. Because your brain cannot predict anything about a truly random person, it cannot learn from interactions with them, cannot build trust with them, cannot invest in relationship with them without constant risk of being surprised in unpleasant ways. But when someone is consistent in their core character, yet unpredictable in their specific responses, your brain stays engaged because it is constantly recalibrating its predictions. You know this person is fundamentally trustworthy, fundamentally kind, fundamentally reliable, but you do not know exactly how they will respond to any given situation. This combination of consistency and unpredictability is the neurological foundation of mystery. It creates sustained attention without creating anxiety. Research by Carnegie Mellon professor George Lowenstein on information gap theory demonstrates that curiosity is not triggered by complete ignorance or by complete knowledge, but by the awareness that there is a gap between what you know and what you want to know. When you reveal everything about yourself immediately, there is no gap. The other person's brain files you as completely known, and curiosity disappears. When you reveal nothing, the gap is so large that people do not know where to start. They cannot even formulate questions because they have no framework for understanding what they do not know about you. But when you reveal enough to create interest and withhold enough to create curiosity, you have created the optimal information gap that keeps people engaged and wanting more. You give them just enough information to understand that there is something worth knowing, but not enough information to feel that they fully understand you. Their brain identifies the gap and begins working to close it, which manifests as sustained interest, repeated attempts to learn more about you, mental occupation with trying to figure you out. Robert Cialdini's research on influence demonstrates that people assign higher value to things that are less available. This is called the scarcity principle, and it applies not just to products but to people. When you make yourself constantly available, always responding immediately, always saying yes to invitations, always being emotionally accessible, you have made yourself abundant, and abundant things are not valued highly. This is not because people are shallow or manipulative. This is because the human brain uses availability as a heuristic for value. When something is scarce, when it requires effort to obtain, when access to it is limited, the brain assumes it must be valuable. Otherwise, why would it be scarce? When something is abundant, when it is always available, when access requires no effort, the brain assumes it must not be particularly valuable. Otherwise, other people would have claimed it already. When you create appropriate scarcity through boundaries, selective availability, and thoughtful response times, you do not become manipulative. You become valuable. You align your availability with the actual value of your time, your attention, your presence. You stop giving yourself away for free and start requiring that people invest something to access you. Russian psychologist Bluma Zygarnik discovered that people remember incomplete or interrupted tasks better than completed ones. This is called the Zeigarnik effect, and it explains why cliffhangers work, why unanswered questions loop in your mind, why unfinished projects haunt you. When something is complete, your brain files it away and moves on. When something is incomplete, your brain keeps it active, keeps working on it, keeps allocating cognitive resources to it. When you finish telling your entire story, share all your thoughts, or fully explain yourself, people's brains file you away as complete and move on. There is nothing left to process, nothing left to wonder about, nothing left to figure out. But when you leave thoughts unfinished, stories incomplete, or questions unanswered, their brains keep processing you even after the interaction ends. You occupy mental space not through volume of communication, but through incompleteness of revelation. Your brain contains specialized neurons called mirror neurons that fire both when you perform an action and when you observe someone else performing that action. This is why yawning is contagious, why you wince when you see someone get hurt, why you smile when someone smiles at you. This is the neurological basis of empathy and emotional contagion. When you demonstrate calm self-possession, when you are comfortable with silence, when you move through the world without seeking constant validation, the mirror neurons in other people's brains fire, and they begin to feel those same qualities in your presence. They associate you with the emotional state you embody. This is why mysterious, self-possessed people make others feel more calm and centered, rather than anxious and needy. The emotional contagion runs in the direction of groundedness rather than anxiety. When people are not actively engaged in a specific task, their brains default to thinking about themselves and their relationships. This is called the default mode network, and it is the mental state you enter when you are daydreaming, taking a shower, going for a walk without specific destination. Your mind wanders, and when it wanders, it tends to wander toward social concerns. Who said what? What did they mean? How do they feel about me? When you create mystery and do not fully resolve people's curiosity about you, their default mode network spends more time thinking about you when you are not around. You become a puzzle their brain works on during downtime. This is why slightly mysterious people occupy more mental real estate than people who have made themselves completely known. They are not just remembered when present, they are thought about when absent. The ability to not immediately satisfy every social impulse, to not text back instantly, to not fill every silence, to not reveal everything you are thinking, requires prefrontal cortex function. This is the same brain region responsible for long-term planning, impulse, control, and strategic thinking. It is what separates humans from most other animals. It is what allows you to delay gratification, to resist temptation, to choose long-term benefit over short-term pleasure. When people observe that you have this capacity, they unconsciously recognize that you are someone who can delay gratification for better long-term outcomes. This makes you seem more trustworthy, because trustworthiness requires the ability to keep commitments, even when immediate impulses would lead you to break them. It makes you seem more reliable, because reliability requires the ability to follow through on plans, even when you do not feel like it in the moment. It makes you seem more worthy of investment than people who are driven by immediate emotional impulses. Understanding this neuroscience does not make the practice mechanical. It makes it compassionate. You are not manipulating people's brains. You are working with how brains naturally function to create the kinds of relationships and respect you deserve. You are honoring the reality that human beings are wired to value what they have to work for, to remember what remains incomplete, and to pursue what remains slightly beyond their reach. This is not about tricking people into liking you. This is about aligning your behavior with the fundamental principles of human psychology so that the natural outcome of your interactions is fascination rather than familiarity, respect rather than being taken for granted, depth rather than superficiality. You are not doing something to people. You are allowing natural neurological and psychological processes to unfold in ways that serve everyone involved. When you understand the science, you can release the guilt. You can stop worrying that you are being manipulative or dishonest. You are simply being strategic about how you present your authentic self in ways that honor both your depth and the reality of how human attention, desire, and connection actually function. But science and strategy mean nothing if you cannot maintain your presence when life applies pressure. And life will apply pressure. There will be moments, situations, relationships where everything around you demands that you abandon your boundaries, explain yourself completely, make yourself fully transparent. This is where theory meets reality. This is where you discover whether you have truly integrated these principles or are just performing them when it is convenient. Scenario 1 is the intimate relationship. This is where mystery is most difficult to maintain because intimacy seems to demand complete transparency. Your partner asks what you are thinking, and you feel obligated to share every thought. They want to know where you are, and you feel suspicious if you value privacy. They ask about your day, and you feel like withholding any detail is the same as lying. But healthy intimacy is not the same as complete merger. Even in committed relationships, you remain two separate people with inner lives that do not need to be completely shared. This is not about hiding affairs or keeping secrets that would damage trust. This is about recognizing that some thoughts need to be processed alone before they are ready to be shared. Some experiences need to settle before they can be articulated. Some parts of yourself need to remain yours even within the context of deep partnership. Practice maintaining small pockets of privacy. Thoughts you process alone before sharing. Activities you do independently. Friendships they are not involved in. Not because you are hiding anything problematic, but because maintaining some mystery keeps the relationship dynamic alive and prevents the suffocating familiarity that kills attraction. When you tell your partner every single thing you think and feel and experience, you eliminate the space for them to wonder about you, to be curious about your inner world, to pursue understanding of you. Scenario 2 is the job. Interview. Professional settings pressure you to prove yourself immediately, to list every qualification, to justify why you deserve the opportunity. You walk into the room already preparing to dump your entire resume, your complete skill set, your full history on the table because you believe that the person who reveals the most will be chosen. But the most compelling candidates are not the ones who tell everything. They are the ones who reveal enough to demonstrate competence while leaving the interviewer curious about their full potential. Answer questions directly but concisely. Share relevant experience without reciting your entire work history. Demonstrate confidence through what you do not say as much as what you do say. Let your presence and your thoughtful responses create the impression that there is significant depth they haven't yet discovered. When you pause before answering, when you choose your words carefully, when you share one strong example rather than 5 mediocre ones, You communicate that you are someone of substance, someone who thinks before speaking, someone who has more to offer than can be revealed in a single conversation. Scenario 3 is social media expectation. Modern digital culture demands constant updates, perpetual availability, and public sharing of private moments. Every platform is designed to encourage you to share more, post more, reveal more. The algorithms reward frequency and transparency. Your followers expect regular content. The entire infrastructure of digital life pressures you toward total exposure. Resist this pressure. You do not owe the internet access to your inner life. Share selectively and strategically. Post what aligns with your values, not what feeds your need for validation. Disappear from social platforms for periods without explanation or apology. When you do engage, make it meaningful rather than constant. People who maintain digital mystery are more intriguing because they have not allowed themselves to be fully consumed and categorized by their online presence. When you are not constantly posting, people wonder what you are doing. When you do not share every achievement, your successes carry more weight because they are not diluted by constant self-promotion. When you are not perpetually available online, your actual presence becomes more valued. Scenario 4 is crisis or vulnerability. When you are going through difficulty, when you are struggling or suffering or facing something that feels overwhelming, the pressure to explain, to seek support, to make people understand what you are experiencing can be intense. You feel isolated in your pain, and you want someone, anyone, to see it and validate it. But crisis is not an excuse to abandon all boundaries and share indiscriminately. Choose 1 or 2 people who have truly earned your trust and share with them thoughtfully. With everyone else, it is acceptable to say, "I am working through something privately right now, but I appreciate your concern." You do not owe everyone access to your struggle. In fact, maintaining some privacy during difficulty often helps you process more effectively because you are not performing your pain for an audience. When you tell everyone about your crisis, you have to manage their reactions, receive their advice, reassure them that you are okay. This takes energy away from actually dealing with what you are facing. Selective sharing during hard times is not weakness, it is wisdom. Scenario 5 is the boundary violation. Someone asks an invasive question. Someone demands an explanation you do not want to give. Someone pushes for information you are not ready to share. The pressure to comply, to avoid seeming rude, to maintain harmony, can make you cave and overshare, even when everything in you knows you should not. Practice the art of the graceful non-answer. That is really personal, and I prefer to keep it private. Or, I do not have a simple answer to that question. Or, I am still processing that myself. These responses set a boundary without being aggressive. They protect your privacy without attacking the person who asked. You can be warm and kind while still maintaining boundaries. Mystery is not rudeness, it is self-respect. When someone violates your boundaries by asking something inappropriate, you are not being rude by declining to answer. They were rude by asking. Your gentle boundary is simply correcting the dynamic back to appropriate. Scenario 6 is success or achievement. When something good happens, when you get the promotion or win the award or achieve the goal, the impulse is to share it immediately and widely to receive validation and celebration. You want people to know. You want them to congratulate you. You want the external confirmation that what you accomplished matters. But consider the power of delayed revelation. Process your success privately first. Let it settle into your bones before you make it public. Sit with the achievement for hours or days before you tell anyone. Notice how it feels when the accomplishment is just yours, before it becomes something you are performing for an audience. When you do share, do so selectively with people who have supported you, not with everyone who might offer superficial congratulations. This practice keeps you grounded, prevents you from becoming dependent on external validation, and makes the sharing more meaningful when it does happen. The people who truly care will be genuinely happy. The people who offer empty praise are revealed as exactly that. Scenario 7 is conflict or confrontation. When someone is upset with you, when they are angry about a decision you made or hurt by something you did, the pressure to explain yourself, to justify your actions, to make them understand your intentions can be intense. You want them to see that you are not a bad person. You want them to understand the reasoning behind your choice. You want to fix their upset by giving them more information. But sometimes the most powerful response is minimal explanation. I understand you are upset. I have made my decision, and I am at peace with it. You do not owe everyone a detailed defense of your choices. Sometimes, maintaining your position with quiet confidence communicates more strength than elaborate justification. When you over-explain, you signal that you are uncertain, that you need their approval, that you might change your mind if they push hard enough. The underlying principle for all 7 high-pressure situations is this: the urge to explain, to prove, to make yourself fully understood, is usually driven by anxiety, not by actual necessity. When you can identify that urge and pause before acting on it, you often discover that saying less serves you better than saying more. Mystery under pressure is not about being evasive. It is about having such solid self-trust that you do not need external validation to know you are making the right choices. It is about being so grounded in who you are that other people's discomfort with your boundaries does not shake you. It is about valuing your own depth enough to protect it, even when everything around you is demanding that you give it away. These scenarios test you. They reveal whether you have truly transformed or are just performing transformation. But when you navigate them with integrity, when you maintain your boundaries under pressure, when you choose self-respect over the comfort of being liked, something fundamental shifts. You stop trying to become someone magnetic. You become someone magnetic. The transformation completes itself. You are no longer trying to become mysterious. You have become someone who naturally holds depth, who moves through the world with quiet self-possession, who makes people lean in, not through performance, but through presence. This transformation is not about adopting new behaviors that you have to remember to execute. It is about shedding old fears that have controlled you for so long. The fear that if people do not immediately understand you, they will reject you. This fear kept you explaining everything, justifying everything, making sure no one could possibly misunderstand your intentions. You have released this fear because you now understand that the right people will invest the time to understand you, and the wrong people were going to reject you anyway, regardless of how much you explained. The fear that silence means judgment. This fear kept you filling every pause with nervous chatter, interpreting quiet moments as evidence that you were boring or awkward or unwelcome. You have released this fear because you now understand that silence is simply space, and what you bring to that space determines its meaning. When you bring anxiety, silence feels threatening. When you bring calm, silence feels peaceful. The fear that privacy means dishonesty. This fear kept you sharing things that should have remained private. revealing vulnerabilities to people who had not earned them, confusing transparency with authenticity. You have released this fear because you now understand that privacy is not deception. Privacy is honoring the reality that your inner world is valuable and should be shared thoughtfully rather than carelessly. The fear that your worth depends on constant external validation. This fear kept you performing, seeking approval, measuring your value by how much people liked you, or praised you, or wanted to be around you. You have released this fear because you now understand that your worth is inherent, not earned through the opinions of others. You have learned that your value does not come from being completely known. It comes from being deeply worth knowing. There is a difference. Being completely known is exhausting because it requires you to constantly update everyone on every aspect of your life. It is depleting because you give away your energy faster than you can replenish it. It is ultimately unsustainable because no human being can maintain that level of disclosure without burning out. Being worth knowing is magnetic because people sense there is depth they have not yet accessed. It is energizing because you are not constantly performing yourself for an audience. It creates relationships of genuine depth rather than superficial familiarity, because the people who stay are the ones willing to invest the time and attention required to truly understand you. You have stopped trying to be understood by everyone and started allowing the right people to understand you gradually, which is how real intimacy is built. Intimacy is not created through information dump. It is created through slow revelation, through demonstrated trustworthiness, through reciprocal vulnerability over time. The people who understand you most deeply now are not the ones you told everything immediately. They are the ones who stayed long enough to discover you layer by layer. You now understand that the most powerful form of communication is often what you do not say. The question you do not answer, because answering it would require more disclosure than the relationship has earned. The thought you do not share, because it needs more processing before it is ready to be spoken. The emotion you process privately before deciding whether it needs to be communicated at all. You have developed the capacity to hold your own counsel, to be your own source of validation, to find comfort in your own company. This does not make you isolated or cold. It makes you grounded and centered in ways that draw people toward you, rather than repelling to them. When you do not need other people to make you feel whole, you can engage with them from a place of genuine interest rather than desperate need. You have discovered that people respect what they have to work for. When you made yourself completely available, constantly explaining, perpetually accessible, people took you for granted. They didn't value your time because they assumed it was infinite. They didn't value your attention because they assumed it was always theirs. They didn't value your depth because you had already shown them everything without requiring any investment from them. Now that you have created appropriate boundaries, thoughtful delays, and selective revelation, people value their time with you because they understand it is not unlimited. They pay attention when you speak because they know you do not speak carelessly. They appreciate your presence because they have experienced your absence and recognize the difference. Your relationships have changed fundamentally. The people who were only interested in what they could extract from you have fallen away because you are no longer giving yourself away for free. They moved on to find someone else who would meet their needs without requiring reciprocity. And you let them go without guilt because you recognize they were never truly invested in knowing you. They were invested in using you. The people who remain are those who genuinely appreciate your depth, who respect your boundaries, who are willing to invest the time and attention required to truly know you. These relationships are fewer in number, but infinitely richer in quality. You have traded quantity for depth, and you have never felt more genuinely connected than you do now with this smaller circle of people who actually see you. Your professional life has transformed in ways you did not expect. You are no longer the person who over-explains in meetings, trying to make sure everyone understands and approves of every decision. You are no longer seeking constant validation from colleagues and supervisors, looking for external confirmation that you are doing well. You are no longer diminishing your own authority through excessive justification of your choices. You speak with calm conviction. You make decisions without apologizing for them. You allow your competence to speak through your work rather than through your words. And people have responded to this shift in ways that confirm its power. People see you as a leader, as someone with gravitas, as a person whose opinion carries weight because you do not offer it carelessly. You have become comfortable with being misunderstood by people who do not matter, while being deeply understood by people who do. This is perhaps the greatest gift of developing mystery, the recognition that you do not need to be all things to all people, that being selectively known is more fulfilling than being universally recognized, that depth with a few is more valuable than familiarity with many. You no longer fear silence. You no longer rush to fill pauses in conversation with nervous explanations. You no longer feel compelled to justify yourself to people who have not earned the explanation. You have learned to trust that your presence communicates more than your words ever could, that your calm communicates more than your anxiety ever did, that your self-possession attracts more than your performance ever will. The person you have become is not someone who uses mystery as a tactic to be deployed when convenient. You have integrated these principles so deeply that they are simply how you move through the world now. You are thoughtful before speaking. You are selective about what you share, and with whom. You value your inner world enough to protect it from casual exposure. You understand that your depth is a gift to be offered intentionally, not a commodity to be distributed freely. You have stopped seeking to be understood and started living in ways worth understanding. You have stopped performing for an audience and started being fully present for the people who have earned your presence. You have stopped explaining yourself into invisibility and started allowing your life, your choices, your character to speak for themselves. This is not the end of your journey. It is the beginning of a new way of being, a way of being that honors your complexity, protects your depth, and invites genuine connection with people who are willing to see you not as you present yourself in carefully curated moments, but as you truly are in your fullness and your humanity. You have become the person everyone wants to understand, not because you have made yourself mysterious through manipulation, but because you have made yourself valuable through self-respect. The world leans toward you now, not because you have changed who you are, but because you have stopped apologizing for who you are. Not because you have hidden your authentic self, but because you have honored it enough to share it selectively. Not because you have played games, but because you have finally learned the most important truth of all, the one where you stop performing and start living as your most integrated, self-possessed, genuinely magnetic self. Welcome to the other side of transformation. Welcome to the life where you are no longer chasing understanding. You are creating it, one intentional revelation at a time, with people who have proven they deserve to know the person behind the mystery. This is your inheritance.